Tonight, claims of rape, roadblocks to a police investigation, and a young woman forced to choose between her career and the pursuit of justice.
Devastating revelations that shocked the Parliament and put the coalition into the dock of public opinion.
I unreservedly apologise to Brittany Higgins, and last night we all heard from Brittany herself in her own words. Her trauma, her distress was very, very clear to all to see. The fact that she felt unsupported in her time working here was also very, very clear for us all to see. And for that, I apologise.
Linda Reynolds was the Defence Minister in whose office the alleged rape occurred 2 years earlier in March 2019. Brittany Higgins said she felt pressured not to pursue a police complaint.
At the time, I truly believed that I and my Chief of Staff were doing everything we could to support that young woman who I had responsibility for.
The next day, Labor went on the attack against the minister.
Why has this minister so failed to meet her own standard? Why is she continuing the cover-up?
All I can reiterate is, as I believe this is a subject of ongoing AFP investigation, that is where this matter rests.
A political firestorm ensued.
The only voice for women, the Labor Party. Thank you.
As the anger of Australian women boiled over.
I was raped inside Parliament House by a colleague, and for so long it felt like the people around me only cared because of where it happened and what it might mean for them.
A little over a year later, Labor won government and the Commonwealth settled with Brittany Higgins in late 2022 with a payment of almost $2.5 million that included compensation for hurt, humiliation and distress, lost earning capacity and medical and other expenses. A spate of legal actions followed, including a criminal trial of the man accused, Bruce Lehrmann, in the ACT Supreme Court, which collapsed, and a failed defamation case by Mr Lehrmann against Channel 10, in which the judge concluded,
Mr Lehrmann raped Miss Higgins. I hasten to stress this is a finding on the balance of probabilities.
Justice Lee also dismissed the idea that there had been a political cover-up.
When examined properly and without partiality, the cover-up allegation was objectively short on facts but long on speculation and internal inconsistencies.
Senator Reynolds left Parliament after the election in May as the saga continued to play out.
Labor so badly wanted the allegations that a female cabinet minister and a prime minister had covered up the rape of a young woman. They so badly wanted it to be true. They didn't actually care if it was true or not.
5 months later, a judge in the WA Supreme Court concluded there was no cover-up by the minister or her Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, finding Brittany Higgins had defamed her former boss on social media.
The allegation of a cover-up had no foundation in fact, and the allegation of inadequate support was based on an incomplete and misleading account of the facts.
Nearly 5 years after the rape claims were made public, the political ramifications continue. Reynolds' former Chief of Staff, Fiona Brown, is pursuing a workplace claim against the government. Linda Reynolds is suing the Commonwealth over the handling of Brittany Higgins' settlement. And there are fresh questions over Labor's actions when the story broke.
Should your senators who led the charge of a Liberal Party cover-up over the Higgins case apologise to Ms Reynolds?
Well, that's not right. I don't accept that characterisation.
What don't you accept?
I don't accept that characterisation.
In estimates last week, one of Reynolds' former colleagues urged government senators to acknowledge there was no cover-up.
Given the findings of the two superior Australian courts, will you now acknowledge that accusations by you and your government of a cover-up were in fact unfounded?
I've said the independence of the judiciary is an essential element of the Westminster system, so too is accountability to the Parliament and the role of the opposition.
Senator Ruston, I have nothing further to say on this matter. I have answered a number of questions and I spoke including directly from Senator Reynolds herself before she left the Senate, and that is on the record, and I have nothing further to say.
Linda Reynolds joins me now. Linda Reynolds, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you, it's great to be with you.
You're still involved in 3 cases related to your role in the Brittany Higgins story. We'll come to some of the details in a moment, but why do you want to keep going with a saga that's caused so much pain to many, including you?
Well, Sarah, it's quite clear to me that I either had to fall over and just let these lies carry me away, or I stood up and fought for the truth and for justice for me and for everybody else who's been so damaged by these lies and by the weaponisation of these lies. I didn't expect it would take 5 years and it would still be going. But for me, 5 years ago, almost to the day, my life was completely destroyed, my reputation, my career and my health. Now, no one can undo that. No one can undo that. But I'm still fighting for the truth and for justice for myself and for others. And that fight continues because, as you saw in your piece, Labor are refusing to accept the judges' judgments.
Let's go through some of that. As Jacob just referred to in his package, you recently won 2 defamation cases in Western Australia. We saw the quote there from the judge that the allegation against you of cover-up had no foundation in fact.
Yes.
You were awarded damages. Have you been paid those damages?
Not a cent from either of them.
Do you have any doubts, any qualms about pursuing damages against a rape victim?
Well, it was the judge who awarded the damages after, in a 360-page judgment that found that the allegations against me, the lies that were at the heart of the biggest and the longest political scandal of its type in Australia's history, it was all based on lies, and that I was defamed. So, and it's very clear in his judgment, all of that. So I wasn't pursuing Brittany or David directly, but I was pursuing the truth. And the judge made the award.
I mean, effectively, you still have to pursue Brittany Higgins in pursuit of that defamation case. Yes. I'm just wondering the process that you went through to make that decision. We understand you are engaged in a search for justice, but did you have qualms at the same time about involving a rape victim?
I have never, ever disputed the rape allegation. And in fact, the history of this is incredibly important because 7 years ago, there was one allegation of rape after 2 staff had entered my office unauthorised after hours. There was an allegation of rape. It was very clear to me and my Chief of Staff then that was a criminal matter that needed to be dealt with by the AFP, and they did. It was also very clear to me that that allegation required proper welfare support to Ms Higgins at the time. We sought the advice, all of the correct advice, we followed it, and in fact I think Fiona did more than most would have, and I think that Justice Lee in particular acknowledged that. But that was 2 years before these allegations, so we did everything right. But it's taken 5 years almost to get the truth told by the judges and to make the truth binding.
And so that relates to you pursuing...
Yes.
And you're pursuing Brittany Higgins.
It was the only way, absolutely, because Ms Higgins could have settled with an apology and saying, I believed it at the time, but I now know it wasn't true, and I'm sorry, I won't say it again. It would have cost, both parties a few $1,000s, but it could have been over. But she didn't.
After those judgments in your favour, did you expect an unqualified apology from the government, from the senators involved?
No. And having a look at Labor's behaviour the whole way through this, it has been despicable, it has been cruel, it has been unrelentless. It has been relentless, I should say. And they have shown no sign that they accept that finding of 2 judges, 2 superior judges in Australia's justice system, and they, even as you saw in that package from last week, they refused to admit that they were wrong. So do I expect an apology? No, but I do, and I am demanding justice and the truth.
Now, Senator Gallagher did say earlier this year, in answer to a question from you before you left the Parliament, that I'm sorry that you have been hurt by all this. You didn't find that adequate.
That's an apology you make when you're not making an apology. She wasn't sorry, and she didn't at all take any ownership because she was intimately involved in this. She misled the Parliament when she said, remember that footage? You know, nobody knew anything. I didn't know anything. You know, nobody, presumably the Labor Party, knew nothing. But that wasn't true. And it only came out through the court cases that she not only knew, but she was intimately involved in setting Labor up to launch this attack.
Let me ask you this question. You've got a case now against the government, which we referred to there, which settled Brittany Higgins' claim against the Commonwealth for the rape, but also for the treatment she had alleged came afterwards. Would an apology in that case against the Commonwealth now be enough for you?
Well, no, it wouldn't, because my fight for justice, when the Attorney-General wrote to me and said that he was taking over my defence a few days before the mediation with Brittany Higgins of the allegations mostly against me, which were all completely demonstrably untrue. When the Attorney-General took over my defence and his lawyers, HWL Ebsworth, told me that they'd taken over my defence, but my defence would be no defence, and the letter actually said to me, your defence will be no defence, that you were barred from attending the mediation. They didn't provide me details of it. And they said in the letter they wanted to settle on the one day. And they knew darn well that I was going to fight those allegations against me, not the allegation of rape. And my firm belief is that's why they took this extraordinary action to take away my right for self-defence.
So what is it that you are seeking now by bringing this action against the government at this stage? What is it that you want?
Well, Sarah, justice is not cheap. And because I was forced to take action to defend my reputation, I said we can't undo all of the damage that's been done over 5 years, but it has been hellishly expensive for me to seek justice through the civil courts. I have no regrets in doing it because it has flushed out a lot of the truth, and certainly the truth about the allegations that were fabricated. But it has cost me a great deal. We have 2 mortgages on our house. We've got millions of dollars of debt. So I don't regret it. And if I lose everything, it will have been worth it.
But right now what you're hoping for is to win damages from the Commonwealth Government.
To cover my costs.
Do you also want that to include an apology?
Absolutely. But I would like it to include an apology, but I have no expectation that if the Labor government did apologise to Fiona and to me, that they would mean it. So it would be, if they're forced to do it, it would be hollow, because they don't. They've shown no contrition, no remorse.
I want to just switch to a different subject for a moment, because I have to ask you about the man who the courts found raped Brittany Higgins. Of course, Lerman was a colleague, albeit a junior colleague of yours. Having lived through the events triggered by his actions on that night, what are your thoughts about him?
Look, I had, and this is one of the facts that have got lost in this, in changing over portfolios, I was actually already in the process of getting rid of him out of my office. So I hadn't re-engaged him, and he was, that week, was leaving my office anyway, because he had committed some other security breaches. So I did not find him in any way suitable to continue working in a minister's office, and particularly in the defence portfolio. So he was already leaving.
And what do you think about him now, on reflection?
I think that it's really not for me to comment, Sarah. I think Justice Lee has made his findings, and that he was guilty of rape, and he certainly has not distinguished himself in his conduct before that trial and afterwards. And I think I'll let his own conduct speak to his reputation.
On reflection, just going back to the political questions, how much were you collateral damage for the political desire on the part of the opposition, a kind of normal, in one sense, desire at that stage, desire to remove Scott Morrison? How much were you the collateral damage for that?
I was completely the collateral damage, because again, the history of this, we had the allegation of rape in 2019, and then out of the blue, these horrific allegations that I had covered up with the Prime Minister and conspired with the Prime Minister to cover up these allegations of rape. And they were so beautifully then conflated with the rape allegation that it was just the perfect setup, because I could not defend myself for a whole variety of reasons, but it would have taken away Brittany's agency.
Should Scott Morrison have done more to protect you at that time? Did he let you down?
Well, I was upset with him at the time, and he could have handled it. I think he said publicly he could have handled it differently. But what people forget was these were allegations that both of us and Michaelia Cash had conspired to cover up a rape. But none of it happened. So he was just as shocked as I was about these allegations, because they were just simply not true.
There was a detail in the recent defamation case in WA. I think your psychologist gave evidence that you said Peter Dutton undermined you. How did he do that?
Well, I think that's sort of history at the moment. But what I would say is I am disappointed at the behaviour of some of my colleagues at the time. I think I was let down by my colleagues more generally.
And by this, you're talking about your colleagues, excuse me,
my Liberal Party colleagues.
Including Peter Dutton.
Including Peter Dutton, and a range of others. I wasn't surprised in hindsight, but I've got to say that I got the most amazing support from individual colleagues who supported me when I could not defend or support myself.
I have to ask you this, who were the other colleagues who let you down at that time?
There was a range of them, and as I said, I was pretty upset with Scott Morrison at the beginning, but what people didn't see is that Scott was amazing with me when, Labor broke me, and for the whole world to see, and Scott was truly amazing. When I collapsed in the chamber, he rushed over, he sat with me for an hour while I was sobbing uncontrollably and completely devastated. And since then, he was in contact with my doctor. And what he did do is, I think in some ways, he actually, in a funny way, helped save my life, because many of my colleagues were undermining me because they wanted the defence portfolio.
Was it as crude and awful as that
Yes.
people were taking, your own colleagues in the Liberal Party were taking advantage of what was happening to you?
Absolutely, that's the nature of politics, and particularly a portfolio like defence.
Let me just ask you a question there about the nature of politics, because you make big statements about what this case represents, and there's clearly a great deal of detail to wade through in this. In the end, it might be it is a sordid saga, it's a seedy saga, but is it more than politics as usual?
Absolutely. I've seen even after the 11 years that I was in the Senate, behaviours have, in terms of respect for the institution of the Senate and the Parliament, respect for each other, has disappeared. And I have written to the presiding officers of both the House of Reps and the Senate, because I believe that they helped facilitate these, because they allowed the Labor Party in both chambers to relentlessly hound me on matters that were going to be sub judice. And they could clearly, the whole country could see that I was buckling under the weight of these accusations, and they found my breaking point. Now, that is not acceptable behaviour, but it is not, respect.
You don't want to identify the colleagues who you say let you down at that time. I just want to bring the question back to Brittany Higgins then. Do you feel sympathy for her?
I have a great deal of mixed emotions. And, the irony that both judges have pointed out in different ways is that there were two women who did the right thing by Brittany Higgins. That was myself and Fiona Brown. And when I had a look at the footage that you just played of Lisa Wilkinson, I still don't understand how it was okay for her to put someone, a victim of a rape on national TV and exploit her like that. I don't understand it. And I think a lot of her colleagues across the media, including here at the ABC, quite frankly, Sarah, have a lot to answer for, because this was a clearly curated, fabricated political scandal. And it was targeted at the media, Lisa Wilkinson, Sam Maiden and others who couldn't believe their luck. It was curated for the Labor Party as well.
Of course, there's a great many allegations included in that sentence, and we can't work our way through all of them.
Sarah, they're not allegations. They are actually clearly in black and white for all Australians to see in those two judgments.
Let me just ask you this question. I note that you don't have words for Bruce Lerman, and you do have mixed feelings about Brittany Higgins. Is it not possible to separate what has happened to you from what happened to Brittany Higgins, and also find words to condemn Bruce Lerman?
Well, I absolutely unreservedly condemn Bruce Lerman, because I clearly had identified before that rape that he was unsuited to work in my office and any ministerial office. So please don't misunderstand that. I think that is very clear, and his own behaviour, as I said, has demonstrated his character.
Do you have sympathy for Brittany Higgins as a rape victim?
I demonstrated in 2019. Fiona and I were the two people who actually did everything right, as two judges have now found. So of course I had great sympathy, and you saw in your own package that first day these allegations came out, I was absolutely mortified about what she had said, because it did not accord with my recollection. So my initial reactions was, how could I have missed this? How could Fiona have missed this? But I knew her allegations were not true, but she appeared to believe them. And I felt bad.
So now you're in the position where you will continue with this fight against the government. I have to wrap it up, but I think you've made that clear that the fight will continue, yes?
It will.
Linda
Until
Reynolds.
the bitter end.
Linda Reynolds, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.